She buried her husband with silence, but when the cartel came, she buried their men with precision. What they called weakness became the trap that rewrote cartel history. If hidden strength moves you, follow this channel and never miss a story. Clara. Monroe's ranch looked like something from a postcard. Weathered wood, windmills spinning, chickens pecking. Locals pitied her. They said she never recovered after her husband died in that mysterious South American conflict. No one ever dared ask what really happened. She just smiled softly and lived quietly on the edge of Ironwood Valley. So when the Navarro cartel sent scouts to her property, they didn't even flinch. Just a lone woman, mid-50s, planting tomatoes. Easy job. Take her land, turn it into a transport route. They didn't know Clara had once been part of the CIA's deepest clandestine branch, Ghostbloom, an operation so buried in red tape and fake files, even the Pentagon barely remembered. They didn't know her hands had once set off missions across 4 continents, nor that her husband, codename Shadow, was still listed MIA, presumed dead. She saw the scouts from her attic window, 6 of them moving through the barn. Amateurs. She activated her surveillance rig, disguised as a vintage ham radio, and waited. Every creak in her floorboards had been measured. Every corner was reinforced. This house wasn't a house. It was a web. And when they finally approached her with smug faces and rifles, she didn't flinch. She just stepped out onto the porch and asked, "Did Diego Rojas send you?" That name alone made one man pause. Then she added, with a stare cold as winter, "Tell him the widow of Bogotá still keeps her promise. And I know what he did in Yucatan." Those words didn't just rattle the scouts. They shattered Diego's calm when the message reached him. She wasn't just another widow. She was a ghost from his past, and her trap had already closed. Clara. Monroe watched the surveillance feeds flicker to life, showing cartel forces preparing for a full strike. Her lips didn't move, but her fingers flew over the old tablet Ghostbloom had issued her decades ago, tech far ahead of its time. She sent a coded burst to a forgotten contact list under the title, Widow's Call. By midnight, her strike team was in position. Vera Lockjaw Langley, a demolitions genius who once sank a cartel ship without boarding it. Yuki Spider, a cybernetic ghost with global access. And May Whisper, Clara's former recon partner who hadn't been seen since Laos. No military badges. No flags. Just shadows with scores to settle. Vera's traps were surgical, pressure plates hidden in flower beds, explosive bait tucked inside fake propane tanks. Spider hacked the cartel's command drone and rewired it to replay Clara's voice on loop. "Diego, you broke the wrong heart." At dawn, Diego's men stormed the ranch, thinking they had the numbers. But every route they took had been calculated. When they breached the barn doors, Vera's explosives collapsed the roof. Not just trapping them, but igniting a chain blast that engulfed their rear armor convoy. Panic turned to chaos. Clara stepped out through the smoke in full tactical gear, her husband's old sidearm in hand. Into Diego's hijacked frequency, she calmly delivered her message. "Tell Diego Rojas, the widow of Bogotá doesn't mourn anymore. She hunts." The last thing his men saw before retreating was her silhouette standing in the fire. As the smoke of war faded, Clara Monroe stood quietly beneath the same tree where she once said goodbye to her husband. Now, instead of grief, she carried purpose, and Ironwood Valley had become her cause. Word of the battle spread in whispers from border towns to cartel hideouts, each one more twisted than the last. Some said a woman summoned spirits from the wind. Others claimed fallen cartel soldiers walked back with empty eyes. The valley earned its name, El Pueblo de Sombras. But Clara didn't stop at fear. She built something stronger: community. Vera. Organized safety workshops that included trap navigation, emergency drills, and home defense, all disguised as women's empowerment classes. Spider laced the valley's power lines and internet with counter-intrusion software masked as weather sensors. May disguised herself as a wildlife tracker and mapped every trail, hill, and canyon, designating safe routes and ambush zones. Clara herself petitioned the State Historical Society, submitting detailed records, some forged, some real, that traced the land to a 19th-century settler massacre. Within weeks, the valley became a protected historical site. On top of that, she coordinated with federal whistleblowers to accuse incoming developers of environmental violations. The next time Diego tried to step foot near the valley, his convoy was met not with bullets, but with reporters, state officials, and a public lawsuit backed by civilian witnesses and protected under federal law. Ironwood Valley was now legally invisible, untouchable, and anyone who entered risked triggering national exposure. Clara watched from her porch, sipping tea as news helicopters buzzed above, taking photos of the brave townsfolk who stood up against criminal intimidation. She didn't want the fame, she just wanted them to know. The widow of Bogota never forgets. They thought she mourned in peace, but she was building a fortress with every heartbeat, every memory, every loss. For more untold stories of quiet strength and real heroes, stay with us. Subscribe now.